Socrates has now led Meno to the point of being aporetic, which is to suffer from aporia is to find yourself completely lacking in any grasp for what you thought you knew. You become angry and sort of numb and annoyed and pissed off. You know, like how you feel about me sometimes when I'm going through the Socratic method with what you think.
Yeah, yeah, but I also understand what's going on, so I appreciate it. But it's true. I mean, I notice it with other people as well. When you start breaking apart these, especially if they're deeply held beliefs, people start getting really funny about things. And it's quite interesting to watch how the second you realize you don't know what you thought you knew, where you thought you had knowledge, and actually all you had was some information, and you didn't fully understand the information, you just knew you how to repeat that bit of information. It's a bit of a blow to your ego, your pride, and stuff like that, and it can make you feel like, oh, fucking. And I notice it, especially in online debate. It was like I was saying the other day, where when I do try and question people and get them to bring out their information and understanding, they're just like, just get to the point, just say your piece, get to the point, get to the point. And it's like, no, I need to know what you know so we can have a discussion on a level. You might know more than me, you might know less than me. At this moment in time, you're not telling me anything. I've just asked a couple of questions and you're like flying off the handle. At least, you know, Mino got through a couple of pages.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can see that happen in the discussion today with the guy who atheism is just a lack of belief. Babies are atheists. Okay, but if it's just a lack of belief, then what about a dead theist? Are they atheist? And he said, no, he's a dead theist. He's not an atheist. Well, atheism can't be just a lack of belief in God. And then he lost the plot.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'm having to redefine it because I didn't expect anybody to come at me with these kind of options. That's what we do.
I didn't expect someone to mention something I didn't understand.
Yeah. And other people then started joining in. And weirdly, they were disagreeing with the original person, but blaming us and our arguments.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's ridiculous to say that rocks are atheists. It's ridiculous to say it in this way because then rocks are atheists. Babies are atheists.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's what
That's
that
the
guy's
point.
saying.
The original post was him just saying 10 times, everyone is born an atheist.
Yeah. But because we were questioning it, we were taken up against.
Yeah.
What they were criticizing the OP, but through us.
Yeah.
But not criticizing the OP, which is, I find it kind of strange. They've come in already aporetic.
Yeah.
And attack the person who's kind of put that state in there.
Yeah.
Rather than going, well, I disagree with your definition. I know you're atheist, but I think you've got a bad definition. It's a strange.
Well, I qualified a couple of times. I think it was a guy called Dylan or something like that. So he kept on saying, well, that's just a ridiculous argument because that, as you said, that would mean babies are atheists. That's this. And so I was like, well, if you look at the OP, it was babies are atheists, and that's because atheism is a lack of belief. No, atheism is an absence of belief in gods. So we have been taking everyone through what that actually means, because that would mean, for example, someone in a coma with minimal brain activity who isn't currently holding beliefs is an atheist, even if they were a theist when they went in. But actually, in that state, they're in a coma, so you might be talking about them in different ways. In the same way that if it's just an absence of belief in gods, then, you know, rocks and rabbits and cheetahs and everything like that would be included in this definition of atheism. And, you know, that's a bit problematic. And we went through and we took everyone through why it was problematic. And as you say, people jumped on arguing against us because don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
But then it's saying that there are a few people that did agree on that sort of thing as well. But yeah, the interesting thing was more and more people, I think, are realizing how stupid the rocks are atheists argument is. And when you throw in something there like a theist in a coma with no brain activity, so therefore isn't able to hold beliefs, and you compare that to a baby, they're like, right, maybe that does make sense then. Okay. And then you go, right. And you start building it up. So it can't just be a lack of belief or an absence of belief. I mean, absence of belief is one of the ones that I find most ridiculous, because people, and someone even said this on there, which I have in my article about absence of belief, lack belief, and don't believe. They they actually said, yeah, but when we say absence of belief, we don't actually mean absence of belief. We mean basically that we don't believe the thing that's been considered. And you go, right, okay, so a baby hasn't been able to consider the proposition. So for one, there you go. And two, okay, so atheism isn't an absence of belief. It's a lack of belief in something that's been, and a proposition that's been considered. So therefore, you can't include babies or anyone in that sort of thing. And the same way you can't include an agnostic, because they haven't fully analysed the proposition. They've just found it meaningless, so they haven't considered it. Or an atheist, they don't care either way, so they haven't fully considered it. That's their answer. So they're different types of non-theists that have a lack of belief, but they haven't fully considered the proposition. And as soon as you consider someone that lacks belief because they've considered something, you are left with two positions where they fully considered it, and that's what's the agnostic position and the atheist position. Now, I know some people like to group those two together. I'm not getting into a debate about that one, but we've already shown that there are so many positions that are not covered by this definition that people keep changing and tweaking. And when you start poking and prodding at this, they're just they have to switch and change, and that's why it's a big problem. We've just had a comment from Leon saying, former atheist here, we just wanted to avoid taking the energy to justify our position, so it was easiest to say we lack belief, plus it's way too prominent of a definition. You're right, there is a lot of utility in the lacktheist definition, because on the internet that is how it is commonly understood. So there's utility in a definition like that. We've had Colossus on Twitter, I think. He says he understands that if he was having a philosophical conversation with someone, he would be described as an agnostic. But on the internet, talking with other atheists against theists, he calls himself an atheist because that's how everybody understands the term, and it's for the ease of conversation. Great. You've made your case for why you're using that definition. It makes sense. Fine, you're free to identify yourself how you like, really. But there you go. He's got a different thing. And what you mentioned about the lack belief position, it's funny as well, because people think that lack of belief definition does absolve them from any burden of proof. People don't take the time to understand what the burden of proof actually is. Dave's got a great article that summarizes a lot of the conversations that we've had about this, called More on Beliefs and Justifications. It was after my article where I was trying to explain it to everyone, and all the feedback that we got from people saying, you don't know what the burden of proof is, you're not real atheists, and you're clearly theist trolls and all that sort of thing. And it's very, very, very hilarious, but also frustrating, the way a lot of this gets treated. So the burden of proof on a positive claim is obviously to prove it true. It's very rigorous. It's like a knowledge claim. If something is knowledge, you're supposed to be able to demonstrate it as true. Caveats aside, but let's go with that for now, for simplicity. Whereas with a belief, you're just supposed to justify it as rational, and that includes lack of belief. Well, I don't believe that. Well, why? That is it. Explain your reasons why. And if your reasons are just, well, you haven't convinced me. Well, why haven't you convinced me? It's not convincing. Okay, that isn't really a strong argument to support why you don't believe someone. There are plenty of reasons to not be convinced. But also, if you are of that lacteous position where you don't believe gods do not exist, but you also don't believe gods exist, you've actually got to justify why you don't believe either position is true. Because when you're considering a proposition, something like existence, it is either true or false. So what you have to consider is, do you believe that it's true? Do you believe that it's false? Now, you can be in a belief state where you believe it's neither true nor false. This is commonly known as the psychological state of being agnostic towards the proposition. And when you're in that state, you almost have to justify why you're not convinced either way. In some respects, it could be harder to justify the agnostic position as a more rational position than either or, depending on how clever you are, obviously. But anyway. Sorry, Dave.
That's all right.